Hey everyone, Jeannie here today. Thanks for stopping by my channel for these two cards. One is a Slimline card and one is an A2 card. I created both these cards using Gerda Steiner's Puppy Mail stamp set for an Instagram hop to promote the Wild Hearts card drive. This card drive is organized by my friend Ricky, also known as Bromero Cards. I'll have all the information for the card drive and the Instagram hop listed down below. For today's video, since I am creating two cards, I will be stamping all the images from the Puppy Mail stamp set twice using Ink on 3's Blackout Ink. This is an ink that works with both Copic markers and watercolors, and it's super dark. I'm also showing the Ink Off cleaner, which is a stamp cleaner in an ink pad, and it's super easy to use and travel friendly. I just always forget to show it on video because it's one of those things that I don't really show, me cleaning my stamps, but I really like the stamp cleaner and I've been using it for months. For my coloring today, I will be only showing one set of the little doggies. I do color them differently, but the idea is still the same. 3 of these dogs are solidly colored and 1 of them has spots. So you can color them however you like, but for most of my coloring, it's pretty standard. I go in with the darkest color, blend out with a mid-tone, and then color the rest in a light ink color. I really like this set because I had checked my stash to see which animal related stamp set I wanted to use, and this one's a rather new one, but I don't think it gets too much love. I think it's super cute, and these images are pretty big. They're almost 2 inches tall, and I thought that they would take up a good amount of space on the card and really fill up my little scene card. I will be creating a step-up card that includes a little doghouse as well as these little puppies. And I had previously done this card on my channel before. It's very similar, except I use My Favorite Things stamp set. And I really wanted to redo it just so I could incorporate the templates that I'm using. And I also included a template for the Slimline version of this card. Slimline cards are super popular right now, and so I also wanted to kind of explore the possibilities with the size of a Slimline card. So if you're interested in creating this card, I will be inserting the template in this video as well as putting it up on my blog post in case you want it as a reference. So you can print it out and you can follow the score lines and the cut lines, and you should be able to recreate this card pretty easily. For all the colors I am using today, I am not listing them down below. I used a ton of different colors across both of the cards because I wanted to change them up a little bit, and there were just too many to keep track of, so I decided to leave that portion out of my video. If you do find the colors helpful, let me know and I'll be sure to include them in my next videos, but sometimes when I'm using way too many colors, I just don't see a point in including the colors because it's kind of a big list. And you can use whatever color works best for you, but if there's a particular color combo that you're interested in, let me know and I can share one of my go-to colors, like for pinks or blues or purples, whatever you need. Once I finish all the coloring, I'm going to be moving on to creating my card. And you really don't need any special dies to do this. I am working with one of the Trinity Stamps Slimline Scenic border dies, which creates a grassy edge, and that's about it. It's not super special or anything. So I'll be using that die just to cut out my green cardstock, and I'm going to cut out several pieces which I will use to decorate my card panels later on. So for my A2 card, I'm using a piece of paper measured at 8.5 by 5.25, and I'm marking a line from the 1 inch mark to the 6.5 inches on the 8.5 side at the 2.5 mark. Then I'll be using a pencil to mark off the spots that I will be scoring. So it'll be at 1 inch, 2 inch, 3.25, 4.5, and then 6.5. You definitely don't have to mark it off at all, but I find that it helps me ensure that I'll be scoring it at the right place. You can use my template as a reference as well, which I find really helpful. And you can see that I was using my template right next to me as my reference. So for this card panel, I'm going to go ahead and use my Fiskars paper trimmer to trim that line from the 1-inch mark to the 6.5-inch mark. And I use my Fiskars paper trimmer because it has that wire, so I don't have to trim the entire panel at all, and you're able to see where you should start and stop. So I'm going to go in and use my paper trimmer as my scoreboard. I don't have a scoreboard right now. I think I might invest in one. Let me know what you think. But this works for me for now because I just didn't want another tool in my tool box. And I'm just scoring the marks that I made. So again, at 1 inch, 2 inch, 3.25, 4.5, and 6.5. And I'll have this template on my blog in this video so you can see exactly where you're supposed to score and where you're supposed to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and crease all the little score lines I have in an accordion style. Here I realized I didn't score the middle of the card, which is at 4.25. Once I do that, all the portions for the scoring and the cutting are complete, and you can easily coax it to fold properly. And once you do, you can use a Teflon bone folder to varnish all the creases and make sure that it is sharp and crisp. That's it for the A2 card panel. For my Slimline card panel, I'm using a piece of paper measured at 8.5 by 7 inches. The Slimline panel for this specific card requires 2 cut lines. So I'll be marking it off at 2 3/4 and then 5 3/4. And I'm marking a cut line from 3/4 of an inch to 6 inches for both cut lines. And that's the solid line that I'm drawing right now. Because I wanted the doghouse to be in the middle, that's why I have 2 cut lines. If you wanted it similar to the A2 card, you'll just use the same score lines and place the main cut line in the left or the right hand side, depending on what you want. For my score lines, I'll be scoring at 3/4 of an inch, 1.5 inches, 2.5, 3.5, and 5.25. And I'm doing this twice, one at the top and one at the bottom, because I'll be scoring the top portion and the bottom portion of the panel and not scoring the middle portion. The only part of the middle portion that you need to do is the middle of the card panel, which would be at 3.5. So again, I'm taking my paper panel to my Fiskars paper trimmer and cutting the cut lines, and this will be at, again, 3/4 of an inch to 6 inches, and that will be the main doghouse portion. Then I'll flip it around and mark off the score lines at the top and bottom of this card panel. And if you look really closely, you'll notice that my top score lines are kind of off on the markings, but my bottom score lines are correct. And I think I just had mistaken where I was marking it, and they're a little off, but I'm following the reference that I have as a template on the left-hand side. And so I think that it'd be best for you to take a look at my template and follow along with the measurements. I've double checked them to make sure that they're right. And if you find any errors, let me know. But I used the template to create these cards, and hopefully they are correct and you guys can create the same step-up card. So once I score the top portion and the bottom portion, I'll go ahead and fold all the lines. And again, the step up card is kind of accordion style. It does make it a little difficult that the middle is not scored, and so you kind of have to finagle it a little bit. What I do is I score the main middle panel first, just a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and push in the creases on the right hand side. Once I do that, I'll move to the left hand side just so it starts bending in the right places. And once I do that, I will be more aggressive with my folds, and you'll be able to create that step up accordion look for the card. Once you do that, you can take your Teflon bone folder and varnish all the creases just to make sure that they're sharp. But that is it for the card panel. Again, I'll have all the dimensions listed on my blog and popped up in the video if you want to take a screenshot. Next, we're going to be working on creating the doghouse. So I cut a strip of red cardstock measuring at 2.5 inches for the A2 card panel and 3 inches for the Slimline card panel. And I'll be trimming each of these pieces down to 1-inch strips. I know that this doesn't really make much sense until you see how I put together the doghouse, but trust me, it does, and it's really cool. It's an easy way to create a fun doghouse without having to draw or color or anything. For the top of the doghouse, I wanted it to be a little bit bigger than the main doghouse. So I am cutting a strip that is 3 inches wide and then 3.5 inches. And I'll be marking it at 1/4 inch each, taking it to my paper trimmer and trimming it at an angle. So this will be the top of my doghouse. And once you see me put it together, it looks really fun. For the doghouse, I also wanted to add a bit of color to the doghouse. So I'm adding black soot at the very bottom of each of the strips, and that will create the dimension once we put everything together. I didn't want to have to go in and color using Copic markers or anything like that, and this was an easy way to add dimension without having to pull out my markers. For the grass, since I already did the same technique to the strips, I decided to add a little peeled paint to the grassy pieces, and I did this for all the little pieces that I'll be using to decorate the card. Once I do that, I'll be putting together the doghouse. I'm adding adhesive to the top portion of the strip so the bottom's kind of bare. And that way I tuck right underneath the previous strip. So once I put it together, it looks like a little doghouse, and I cover the entire panel on the right hand side. To create a doghouse door, I take a piece of black cardstock, trim down like a rectangle, any size that you see fit, and I rounded the edges on one side, and that becomes the door for my little doghouse, and I think it's so adorable. For the Slimline card, I'm repeating the steps and covering up that middle panel with the 1-inch red cardstock strips. And then I will be taking those grassy edges and covering each of the steps. Since I used a Slimline die to cut out these grassy edges, it will be a little bit longer than I need, and I will be trimming it down. Of course, if you didn't have a grassy edge die, you don't have to. You can just use green cardstock, cover it up, and it will look like grass regardless. So you definitely don't need any fancy dies for this particular card. You really just need to rely on the template to create the effect of the step up card, and you can decorate it. So once I am done with the grassy area, I'm going to go ahead and add the little doggies. I definitely wanted to have a different dog on each of the levels, and I really think that this card turned out so fun. Once I adhere to everything, that card is done, and we'll come back to add the sentiments. For the Slimline card, I'm doing the exact same thing, adding all the grassy edges to each of the steps. And of course, if you chose to do a Slimline card where the doghouse was on the right hand side or the left hand side, you wouldn't have to cut down all these grassy edges. But I really like the idea of having the doghouse in the middle just to balance it out, because this is such a long card. And I think that it turned out really fun. I also wanted dogs on each level. I wanted something different. And I did use the Hello sentiment from the stamp set to be coming from the little dog in the doghouse. And then I added an additional sentiment on the left-hand side of the card. So I know I sped up through the decorating portion of the card, but I think the main part of the card was just putting it together and doing the cut lines and doing the scoring to create the step up template. And once you do that, you can decorate it to your heart's desire, and it turns out to be such a fun card that you can fold down flat and place into an envelope, whether it's a Slimline or an A2 card. Thanks for joining me here today for these 2 step-up cards. I'll have the information for the card drive and Instagram hop listed down below in the description box. I'll also have my related blog posts listed so you can grab the template if you want. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe so you can see more of my videos. I do plan on doing a series of interactive cards without the need for special dies. So I hope you found this one to be helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.